Netflix releases a new Jeffrey Dahmer documentary today that's set to explore one of the most notorious serial killers in U.S. history. The new three-part series, titled Conversations with the Killer, The Jeffrey Dahmer Tapes, is available to watch now. It includes footage from Jeffrey Dahmer's defense team, including his lawyer Wendy Patricus, who speaks on his gruesome murders and everything leading up to his court hearings in the 90s. Dahmer photographed his victims as he wanted to keep them as mementos to keep him company. According to the American Journal of Forensic Medicine and Pathology, in 1994, the sicko is also believed to have taken pictures of his victims at the various stages of the murder process, so he could recollect each act afterward and relive the experience, reports biography. Today, 12:45. Viewers all say the same thing. Viewers of the Jeffrey Dahmer show are all equally as disturbed by the sick scenes. One fan said, watching the Netflix documentary about Jeffrey Dahmer, "That mind was really twisted." A second added, "The Jeffrey Dahmer series is so hard to watch. I'm not even 15 minutes in and I'm already sick." Today, 12:45. Viewers all say the same thing. Viewers of the Jeffrey Dahmer show are all equally as disturbed by the sick scenes. One fan said, watching the Netflix documentary about Jeffrey Dahmer, "That mind was really twisted." A second added, "The Jeffrey Dahmer series is so hard to watch. I'm not even 15 minutes in and I'm already sick." Today, 12:15. Who was Jeffrey Dahmer victim Edward Smith? Edward "Eddie" Smith was Dahmer's seventh victim, and he killed the 28-year-old only 2 weeks after his previous murder. Smith was known as the Sheik by his friends because he often wore a headscarf. He was an aspiring model from Milwaukee, with a loving family. Smith's sister, Carolyn, became a prominent figure in the trial, and his brother, J.W. Smith, read out statements in court from their family. Ed was raised in a Christian home where he learned how to be a loving, trusting, respectful human being, he said. Eddie inherited all the blessings that a family structure had to offer. The greatest of those blessings was love, he added. Today, 11:45. Dahmer's lawyer shocked me to the core. His reasons shocked me to the core. Wendy Patricus was the murderer's defense lawyer, and had to sit through 32 hours of horrifying court hearings. In the Netflix documentary, Conversations with the Killer, The Unheard Jeffrey Dahmer Tapes, he tells Wendy, "I was looking for live companionship, someone to spend the night with and of complete control over, to do with whatever I pleased." Today, 11:15. Who arrested Jeffrey Dahmer? Dahmer was arrested on July 22, 1991. His arrest came after Tracy Edwards waved down two police officers, Rolf Mueller and Robert Trout, who were on patrol in downtown Milwaukee. Both officers then went to Dahmer's apartment to question him. It was there Mueller discovered the polaroids in the bedside table. After making the gruesome discovery, Mueller realized the polaroids he was holding had been photographed in the same apartment where they were standing. Showing his partner, Mueller said, "These are for real." Dahmer was quickly apprehended and arrested. He was convicted the following year and sentenced to 16 consecutive life terms in prison. Today, 10:45. Dahmer was scared to death of girls. While Dahmer might have been somewhat of a class clown, he was not smooth with the ladies. However, he did manage to get a date to the prom in 1978. At the time, he went to the school dance with 16-year-old Bridget Geiger. Shortly after his arrest in 1991, a local newspaper sat down with Geiger, who recalled what it was like to go to prom with Dahmer and why she fled from his house. "He was scared to death of girls," she said at the time, via the Associated Press. "He was scared to death I was going to kiss him." Geiger then explained that she had gone back to his house afterward for a party, but things did not go as planned. She recalled there being no music, no food or drinks, adding that it was a nerd party. Today, 10:15. Timeline of Dahmer's murders. Here is a timeline of Dahmer's murders. June 18, 1978, Stephen Hicks, 18. November 20, 1987, Stephen Tuomi, 24. January 16, 1987, Jamie Dockstater, 14. March 24, 1988, Richard Guerrero, 25. March 25, 1989, Anthony Sears, 26. May 20, 1990, Raymond Smith, also went by Ricky Beeks, 33. June 1990, Edward W. Smith, 28. September 1990, Ernest Miller, 22. September 24, 1990, David C. Thomas, 23. February 18, 1991, Curtis Straughter, 18. April 7, 1991, Errol Lindsay, 19. May 24, 1991, Anthony Tony Hughes, 31. May 27, 1991, Kona X Synthesymphone, 14. June 30, 1991, Matt Turner, 20. July 5, 1991, Jeremiah Weinberger, 23. July 15, 1991, Oliver Lacey, 23. July 19, 1991, Joseph Bradhoft, 25. Today, 9:45. What happened to Raymond Smith? Milwaukee monster Jeffrey Dahmer had been released from prison for second-degree sexual assault, and with his newfound freedom, moved out of his grandmother's house into a new apartment. Within 1 week, on May 20, 1990, Dahmer met Mr. Smith, and lured him to his apartment at 213 Oxford Apartments, North 25th Street. He offered him $50 in exchange for sex, and once inside the property he spiked the sex worker's drink with sleeping tablets. It is reported Mr. Smith's cause of death was strangulation, and Dahmer then performed sex acts with the cadaver. According to police reports, the victim's corpse was also dismembered and decapitated, as Dahmer wanted to paint the skull gray. Today, 9:15. Who was Raymond Smith? Raymond Lamont Smith was born in 1957 and was just 33 at the time of his death. Also known as Ricky Beeks, Raymond was a sex worker and little is known about him. He left behind a 10-year-old daughter after he was brutally murdered. Today, 8:45. Dahmer had submissive fantasies when he was 18. Within the series, Conversations with the Killer, The Jeffrey Dahmer Tapes, E. Michael McCann. The Milwaukee District Attorney said by the time Dahmer was a senior in high school he was having sexual fantasies. One being of having sex with someone that was completely submissive to him. Within the tapes, Jeffrey admits that his first fantasy was probably around when he was 18. Today, 8:15. Dahmer had an eerie apartment. Jeff Fleming, a reporter from Milwaukee NBC, said he was at the scene of the night Dahmer was arrested. Whilst reporting on the murders, Jeff highlighted that he knew something big was happening due to the faces of the police officers at the scene. Jeff managed to get a look at Dahmer's apartment room as he knew the police officer guarding the door. He said the room was not too memorable, however the one thing that stood out to him more than anything else was the creepy lava lamp. He said it gave an eerie feel to the apartment. Today, 7:46. Dahmer's lawyer was incredibly nervous during first meeting with him. When Wendy Patricus first went in to see Dahmer, he was sat at the corner of the table. And she was incredibly nervous because she felt the investigation was well over her head. She felt like Clarice in The Silence of the Lambs, as Dahmer was very polite, which took her by surprise. Dahmer said that it was something he had buried in himself for years during his first conversation with Wendy. Today, 7:20. Who were Jeffrey Dahmer's victims? Bradhoft was the 17th and final victim that Dahmer murdered between 1978 and 1991. The serial killer became notorious for his heinous killings and cannibalistic tendencies. Dahmer committed his murders over a 13-year period and went undetected by the police until his 18th victim managed to escape. Tracy Edwards, 32, managed to find his way out of Dahmer's apartment and call the police. Once inside the killer's home, police found a drawer of almost 80 gruesome photographs of Dahmer's victims and their dismembered bodies. The Polaroids taken by Dahmer were important in helping the police identify the victims whose bodies were never found, like David Thomas and Stephen Tuomi. Today, 6:54. Who was Jeffrey Dahmer victim Joseph Bradhoft? Bradhoft was the eldest of 4 siblings and he grew up in Illinois. He had only recently moved to Milwaukee before meeting Dahmer in July 1991. He has moved to the area from Minnesota looking for work and was living in an apartment rented by his brother. The 25-year-old had a wife and 3 young children back in Minnesota, the children ranging between the ages of 2 and 7. He was in search of a job to help financially support his family. Bradhoft had left for a job interview on July 19, 1991, and was never seen again. His family shared that he loved sports and fishing and was a devoted father. Today, 6:21. How did Jeffrey Dahmer kill James Dockstader? Jeffrey Dahmer killed mainly homosexual teens and young men, many of whom were people of ethnic minorities. He would often target his victims in public areas, such as malls, bars, and bus stops, and would lure them back to his home with promises of money or sex. According to the Tampa Bay Times, Dahmer met James Dockstader on January 16, 1988. Whilst he was waiting at a bus stop outside of a gay club in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dahmer offered the young teen $50 in return for a nude photo shoot. At this time, Dahmer was residing at his grandmother, Catherine's home. After taking James back to Catherine's house, Dahmer strangled the young boy and left his body in the basement. Dahmer later dismembered his body, disposing of the individual body parts. James's remains were never found, and he was only identified as one of Jeffrey's victims after the serial killer's arrest in July 1991. Today, 6:01. Viewers react to the new Conversations with the Killer series. Viewers have been left horrified by the new series, with many describing it as gruesome. One viewer said, "Conversations with the Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes gives me the shivers." A second added, "Horrifying, gruesome, shocking." Today, 5:35. Who was Dahmer's youngest victim? James Jamie Dockstader was of Native American descent and just 14 years old at the time of his death. His mother described him as an independent and outgoing teenager who got into trouble and cut school. According to the Tampa Bay Times, the teenager had ran away from home to escape an abusive stepfather just 2 days before he met Jeffrey Dahmer. Reports state that the teenager had an abusive father who made his life quite difficult. However, this was never confirmed. His mother reported her son's disappearance to the police. But it wasn't until he was identified as one of Dahmer's victims that she found out what had happened to her son. Despite his troubles, the young runaway had high hopes for his future. Sadly, the teenager had no idea about the tragedy that would ultimately cost him his life. Today, 5:12. How does Conversations with the Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes start? The new series opens with Jeffrey Dahmer's lawyer sat in front of the camera explaining how she was given the case as her first job. Wendy Patricus explains that she got a call from her boss informing her of the new case and it was a big one. Wendy's boss had described Dahmer as a nice man and that he wouldn't bite her head off. Today, 4:27. Dahmer committed his first murder at just 18 years of age. Dahmer, who realized he was gay at 13, grew up friendless with warring parents. Dad Lionel moved out when he was 18 and Mum Joyce took younger brother David to live in Wisconsin, leaving him alone in the Ohio family home. Feeling depressed, lonely, bored and confused, he met his first victim, 19-year-old Stephen Hicks, shortly after. "No one was at home. I saw this guy hitchhiking, and I thought it would be nice to have someone around to talk with and someone I wanted to be with for sex," he said. After inviting him back to the house for beer, Dahmer bludgeoned him with a barbell before strangling him. "I don't know why I hit him except that I wanted to stay with him," he said. "It shocked me that I'd got to that point. But there was a feeling of excitement, or control, mingled with fear." Today, 4 o'clock. Who was Jeffrey Dahmer's defense attorney? Wendy Patricus. Jeffrey Dahmer has been the focus of many documentaries over the years, after he was convicted of 17 murders, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In 2022 he will be the focus of yet another documentary, Conversations with the Killer, The Jeffrey Dahmer Tapes. Participating in the Netflix series is Wendy Patricus, who was once Jeffrey Dahmer's defense attorney. Patricus was just 25 when she was assigned to Dahmer's case, was 1 year out of law school and had just moved to Milwaukee. She was first sent to speak to Dahmer by her boss, Gerald Boyle, who was also working as the killer's attorney at the time. Speaking in the documentary, the former defense attorney said, "When I first went to see him it was a very small interview room. There was Jeff sitting in the corner of the table. I was incredibly nervous, because this is something that I felt was way over my head. I felt like Clarice Starling in The Silence of the Lambs." Today, 3 o'clock. What is the Polaroid challenge? A sick TikTok Polaroid challenge has gone viral, encouraging people to find photos of the graphic Polaroids that Dahmer took of his victims and filming their reactions to seeing the images. Users have been warned not to take part in the disturbing challenge. Today, 2 o'clock. Who was Jeffrey Dahmer's defense attorney? Wendy Patricus. Jeffrey Dahmer has been the focus of many documentaries over the years, after he was convicted of 17 murders, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In 2022 he will be the focus of yet another documentary, Conversations with the Killer, The Jeffrey Dahmer Tapes. Participating in the Netflix series is Wendy Patricus, who was once Jeffrey Dahmer's defense attorney. Patricus was just 25 when she was assigned to Dahmer's case, was 1 year out of law school and had just moved to Milwaukee. She was first sent to speak to Dahmer by her boss, Gerald Boyle, who was also working as the killer's attorney at the time. Speaking in the documentary, the former defense attorney said, "When I first went to see him it was a very small interview room. There was Jeff sitting in the corner of the table. I was incredibly nervous, because this is something that I felt was way over my head. I felt like Clarice Starling in The Silence of the Lambs." Today, 1 o'clock. What high school did Jeffrey Dahmer go to? Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He later relocated to Bath Township, Ohio, where he attended Revere High School. During that time, he was seen as an average student, but he did not go unnoticed and would even pull pranks on his classmates. In the documentary Jeffrey Dahmer, Mind of a Monster, his former classmate, Mike Krukle, explained that he would find a way to get into group yearbook photos for clubs he was not a part of, including the National Honor Society. In our senior year, they took photographs of all the groups. They took photographs of the sports groups and the clubs and everything else. And Jeff Dahmer's got in group photos that he was not a member of, Krukle explained, via Lad Bible. Today, 0 o'clock. What happened to Jeremiah Weinberger? Just days after Dahmer killed 20-year-old Matthew Turner, he met Weinberger in Chicago. The two then took a Greyhound bus to Milwaukee to spend the weekend together. However, Weinberger's weekend getaway quickly went south after Dahmer drugged him and injected boiling water through his skull. The injection put Weinberger into a coma and he died 2 days later. 6th OCT 2022, 2300 hours. Who was Jeffrey Dahmer victim Jeremiah Weinberger? Jeremiah Weinberger was famously known as one of Dahmer's victims. A native of Puerto Rico, he resided in Chicago in the 1990s and was working as a customer service representative for a video store, according to USA Today. He loved art and was very meticulous, his roommate, Tim Gideon, recalled. His desk was always straight, and he knew where everything was. He always dressed nice and always worried about what he wore and how he looked. Weinberger was last seen on July